Good afternoon. My name is Corinne Waldow. I'm the Economic Development Director for the Boulder Chamber. I want to welcome you to this week's Real Estate and Field Services call. This will be the last week that this group will be by itself. As of next week, we'll be combining it with office and manufacturing to provide more of a combined update. But we will continue to offer those updates to specific industries as they come up. You'll get more information in the email I send out afterwards, including the new links to register. I want to thank you for participating today, for getting your questions answered, for getting your information, and for providing feedback. It's very important that we continue to build consumer and employee confidence and get our economy up and running, but in a safe manner that protects the safety and health of our community as well as our economy. If you have any Q&A today, please put it through the Q&A feature. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Amber Sutherland with Boulder County Public Health, who will take it away from here.
Thank you, Corinne. And just want to give a shout out to the Boulder Chamber for putting on these sessions. It's really been helpful to provide the information to the different sectors and for this field services session today. So just to give you an update, I'm just gonna reduce my screen here. So the agenda and purpose of this is really to provide updates about where we're at with Safer at Home, providing resources to support you, and then answering your questions through our Q&A feature. And just a reminder, Boulder County Public Health cannot provide legal advice, so compliance is obligatory. Requirements are frequently changing, as we will see a few changes this week. And then Boulder County Public Health is working to support you. And then if you have any additional questions about compliance, make sure that you're in contact with your attorney to get those clarifications. So just to give you a timeline, so where we were at, the city and county had proposed a face covering order, which is still in effect. June 1st, a Safer at Home was extended through June 30th. And then June 1st, short-term rentals were permitted. So that's one of the new additions. And then June 3rd, the feedback is due, so that's tomorrow, for houses of worship, outdoor recreation, personal recreation, and personal services. And then lastly, June 4th, we should have more updates for changes for houses of worship, outdoor recreation, personal services, and personal recreation. So there will be quite a few new updates this week, not specifically for field services, but some of the other areas. So what is our long-term outlook? Safer at Home will evolve over time, just realizing that we're still here with the virus, which is ever present, and it's not going away anytime soon. And we will not get back to the new normal for a while, basically until a vaccine is found, treatment has been effective, or we've reached herd immunity. And so likely it will be months and not just weeks. And just a couple friendly reminders. So COVID-19, as I mentioned, is still just as contagious. Continue to stay at home as much as possible, and then face covering, when in doubt, bring it out. So just realizing, whenever you're in public, you definitely want to be wearing the face covering just to protect yourself and others. So just reviewing some common Q&A that we've addressed in the field services before, but our in-person real estate showings permitted, our closings and related activities allowed. So yes, in-person real estate showings are still permitted, and closings related to the activities are allowed. So one of the big questions you might all be asking, are open houses allowed now? And no, this is still prohibited at this time. And can I show occupied properties, and will a mask requirement still be enforced? Yes, the mask requirement is still being enforced through Boulder County, and so you will need to continue that. And then lastly, a question that we've addressed before, when employees are out working outside by themselves, do they have to keep their masks on at all times? So basically, knowing where you cannot have a 6-foot distance, making sure that you're wearing your mask, but thinking of, various construction sites, you would be wanting to wear your masks around other employees when working closely, especially. And then the only reason you would not need your mask is if you're working in your private office by yourself, or you're doing a task that you do not have anybody else around. So just going over Boulder County guidance and tools. The only thing I think we've updated recently is the space calculator regarding these. And that's one thing mostly being used for retail right now. And then I just wanted to highlight a resource spotlight. And this is just basically construction, landscaping employees and workers and preventing COVID-19 and transmission. So I'm going to see if I can. Just going to share my screen on that specific piece. And this is under, can you all see my screen now? Okay, so this is the CDC has produced what construction workers need to know about COVID-19. So it does go into a little more depth on how can construction workers and landscape workers protect themselves to slow the spread, and then what steps should my employer take to reduce transmission. So I thought that this was a pretty good example of a lot more information on really how you can use this for some of the field services construction sites. So going back to the presentation. And then regarding outbreaks, so if you have 2 or more employees with confirmed or suspected COVID-19 within a 14-day period, you basically should immediately report that to Boulder County Public Health, and then we will help you determine what actions are needed next. And then here's just a few more resources for you. And then lastly, next week we will be changing these up a bit, as Corinne said. So just to give you an overview.
I can't see your PowerPoint.
Okay. Is that good? Okay. So yeah, just to give you an idea of some of the how we're merging some of these for next week. And then lastly, if you do have any additional questions, make sure to just contact us at the Boulder County website at covidbiz@bouldercounty.org. And now I'll turn it back to Corinne for some more questions.
Thank you, Ambra. So just wanted to point out that the call center hours have changed to 9 to 5, correct? So they've kind of reduced, but the same number and the email address. So that came up.
Great, thank you.
Have you gotten any questions or concerns from from anybody in the real estate or field services area about mask usage recently?
Mostly we've been seeing it more from the retail side than really the real estate side. I've been manning the complaint log and I haven't seen anything come through on the real estate side. But it looks like Veronica's on the call today, so maybe.
I have not been hearing any complaints. I'm just hearing that it's a very busy market right now and that everybody has been pretty diligent about wearing their masks and having their sanitizing tools with them. So, and that from my perspective is great news. If I'm not getting phone calls about people who are not behaving within the scope of the order, I think that's a really positive sign.
Great.
Thanks, Veronica.
That is a positive sign. It's about that consumer confidence that we're trying to build for all of our economy. So how can a company in real estate or field services help ensure confidence in their employees. So what are some of those things that companies are doing to help make sure that employees know about the rules and feel confident that they're going to stay safe in the office environment or, you know, out on the field, things like that?
Right. I think, you know, the signs have really been helpful that you made and that you are providing to really, you know, like the open for business sign. I think that really does help ensure people that, you know, the places that you're going into are safe. And then, you know, also requiring masks. I think that really does get the messaging across. I know field services don't have a lot of, you know, like retail, it's quite different, but I think really just if you're wearing a mask, you know, your customers are going to be a lot more confident too, and your employees. If you're you know, showcasing that you're wearing a mask, and then you're really you know, showing them that you're you know, invested in it.
So let's say you're in the field services, or you're a house cleaner, or, you know, one of those other fields where you go into a home and the homeowner's like, oh, don't worry, don't wear a mask. Should you still wear it?
I think it's really your personal safety. If you're going to feel uncomfortable wearing it, you know, I would say, I mean, me personally, I always wear a mask when I go out, and I would feel, you know, not as safe not wearing a mask in a situation like that. So it's really up to your comfort level at that point.
Okay. Any questions out there from the participants in today's calls? And if you want to raise your hand, I'm happy to allow you to talk, since we do have a limited number. If you have questions about your office, you can ask those today as well, because Matt is on the call, and Matt covers the office category. We are going to be combining field services, real estate, and office and manufacturing starting next week, because we're hearing that, yes, it's great, we have our realtors out there, they're all you know, showing houses. We're kind of a little nervous about opening our realtor office or our accounting office or some of those office situations, so we've decided to combine those. Do we have, I know we have some people on the call that have been on every call, so I think they're just waiting for any updates. So the governor has created basically another version of the latest order to allow additional industries, which you pointed out earlier. But we're still in the safer at home phase, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a while.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just as things are opening up, you know, it is just allowing a few more businesses to operate that weren't operating before. But, you know, I think they're also still going to be issuing, you know, sanitation guidelines, mask requirements, you know, gloves, any kind of PPE, along with these general updates. So.
Okay.
So I had a question from one of our members that asks, do we need to continue to wear gloves when we are in the office?
Yeah, so I could probably take that one. This is Matt Hannon. I work alongside Ambra, and I help cover the office-based businesses. And so the short answer to that would be no, especially if you're just kind of by yourself, you know, in your office typing away. The times that I would wear gloves would be if you are, you know, if there's a fair amount of people in the office and maybe you're going to the break room to grab your lunch, you know, so maybe wearing gloves when you're touching the coffee maker or the refrigerator door. Those might be good ideas, or really any high touch surfaces that could even be going to the, you know, the printer or the copy machine, because a lot of people are going and using those machines on a pretty frequent basis. So generally speaking, yeah, if you're going to be kind of by yourself in your office, typing away on your computer and gloves are kind of a nuisance, then you're okay. But if you're going to be touching surfaces that other folks in the office are touching, it's a good idea to have some gloves on.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm going to put you on the spot one more time. So in the office situation, can you bring everybody back, or is it still limited?
Yeah, great question. So there hasn't not been any new guidance over the last few weeks with offices, which means the original guidelines are still in place. So you are limited to 50% max capacity of your office. And that doesn't matter on office size. So, you know, if you're a 20-person office, no more than 10 can come back in. If you're a 100-person office, no more than 50. We still suggest that folks continue to work at home as much as possible. So if you can keep your number in your office down to that 20, 30, 40% capacity. That's all the better. Certainly keep all those guidelines in that you've been following in terms of mask wearing, social distancing, cleaning all of those high touch surfaces, even just your own workspace. And then keeping those workspaces separate. So if you're in a larger office with maybe a number of workspaces or cubicles, having every other cubicle occupied versus where people maybe would normally sit is always a good idea.
Well, and in some of our field services and real estate, they have waiting areas for guests, that have come in maybe in some way. What is your advice on some of that common area for these facilities?
Yeah, so every building and office is obviously a little bit different in the way it's set up. So, a big question is doors as well, doors, common spaces. I'd say for any meetings or waiting areas, ideally if folks can wait outside or if you can conduct your meetings outside, especially with kind of this nicer weather we're having, that would be an ideal situation. But if you have, a common space where folks are congregating and waiting to maybe, meet you in your office, you'll want to, pretty much wipe down, the chair they were sitting in. A good idea to take away maybe any magazines if you have a waiting room with magazines in it. Don't have those magazines so that people aren't, just flipping through and touching them all the time. And then with doors, if you only have one door, in your office, it's pretty easy. You just gotta have, one door and ideally prop it open. But if you have two doors, ideally you keep those both open and have an entrance and an exit door so that people aren't passing by each other. It minimizes the amount that they need to touch the doorknobs. There's a couple ideas there. And as Amber mentioned too, there's some great resources both through the state website as well as the Boulder County website where you can get a lot more information on office-based businesses.
Okay, thank you. And the time for office on Tuesdays will be this time, so it will be 2 o'clock every Tuesday. So it'll be office, field services, real estate, and manufacturing. All of those facilities have some sort of office involved in it, so it's kind of why they we put them together. Do you guys have any other things you'd like to offer to this group? Maybe Veronica, as we get busier into the summer, are there some other things that maybe the real estate side might need to think about, with more showings and more people looking for homes that we might need to answer in future calls?
No, I think the burning question is still remaining on open houses and whether or not that's going to happen at all this summer. But as far as, I really think that everyone has just adapted to this, way of doing business and, driving separately from their clients by having their gloves and their masks and just making sure they have access to all of that is pretty important.
It's great. Have you guys heard any more? Have you heard any more complaints about access to PPE, or are people starting to figure out how to find the masks and the gloves? I'm also asking Amber and Matt.
Yeah, I haven't heard of people who, struggling to find things now. So it seems like, people are finding what they need. As far as I've heard.
Right, and then coming up with their own solutions, instead of depending on having a Clorox wipe, they'll make their own wipes with, bleach and things like that would be disinfecting, and just having that with them at all times.
We're all adapting, so that's good to hear. At this point, I don't have any more questions coming in, so I'm going to thank everybody for participating. Thank you for continuing to get your questions answered, to provide feedback, to get information. And like I said, we'll be combining these with to make them a little bit more robust about some other industries as well. But they will be available into the near future for you to ask these questions and get information. Look for further guidance on that from me and any resources that were mentioned. And we hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.